The massive doors of the Galactic Senate chamber slid open with a deep rumble that echoed through the vast space. Admiral Zephyx walked forward on his 6 powerful legs, his purple scales catching the light from the crystal dome above. Behind him marched representatives from 46 other alien worlds, each one looking grim and determined. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, built into the heart of Nexus Prime. Floating platforms held delegates from species that breathed different atmospheres. Some floated in tanks of methane gas, while others sat in chairs made of pure energy. The air hummed with translation devices, working overtime to convert thousands of different languages into something everyone could understand. Admiral Zephyx reached the center platform and activated the holographic display. Images of human colonies flickered to life, showing bustling cities on distant worlds. Ships moved between the stars carrying people and cargo. The numbers were staggering and growing every day. "Fellow beings of the Senate," Zephyx began, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "We face a crisis unlike any in our recorded history. The species called humans has expanded beyond all reasonable limits." A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Some shifted in their seats while others made sounds that their translators couldn't quite convert into words. 50 years ago, we made contact with Earth," Zephyx continued. "They were a single-world species with primitive technology. We offered them friendship and limited access to our trade networks. Look what they have done with this gift." The hologram changed to show a timeline. 50 years ago, humans lived only on Earth. 10 years later, they had settlements on Mars and several moons. 20 years after first contact, they had colonies in 3 star systems. Now, just 50 years later, they controlled 12 complete star systems and were building in 6 more. "This rate of expansion is unprecedented," declared Counselor Vrex of the Crystalline Collective, her voice ringing like broken glass. "No species in our history has grown so quickly." "That is not the worst part," Admiral Zephyx said. He changed the display again. Now it showed human warships, their sleek designs unlike anything in the known galaxy. Their military technology advances at a rate that defies all logic. They take our designs and improve them within months. They create weapons we have never seen before. War Chief Krax of the Saurian Dominion slammed his massive fist on his platform. "They are unpredictable. They fight in ways that make no sense. Their tactics change faster than we can adapt to them." The chamber erupted in discussion. Delegates spoke in their native languages while translators worked frantically. Some called for immediate action while others urged caution. Through it all, Admiral Zephyx waited patiently. When the noise died down, he spoke again. "We have prepared an ultimatum. The humans will surrender all colonies beyond their home system. They will accept technological limitations to prevent further rapid advancement. They will submit to permanent Senate oversight of their activities. They have 30 standard days to comply." "And if they refuse?" asked Prime Thinker Vexhai of the Etherian Collective. Admiral Zephyx's scales darkened to a deep purple. "Then we implement neutralization protocols." Meanwhile, on Earth, President Jake Morrison sat in the Oval Office staring at a document that would change everything. Across from him sat Ambassador Lisa Grant, just returned from Nexus Prime. Her face was pale and her hands shook slightly as she spoke. "They're serious about this, Mr. President," she said. "I've never seen the Senate so united about anything. Even species that have been enemies for centuries agree that humanity poses a threat." President Morrison was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had led America through 3 economic crises and 2 wars, but nothing had prepared him for this. "What exactly are they demanding?" Lisa read from her notes. "Complete evacuation of all human colonies beyond the Sol system. That means abandoning 12 worlds where 15 million people now live. Acceptance of technology limiters that would prevent us from advancing beyond current levels. Permanent Senate observers on Earth with the power to veto any decision they consider threatening. And if we refuse, they call it neutralization protocols. Based on what I observed, It means they'll attack with everything they have. The combined fleets of 47 worlds, Mr. President. We're talking about tens of thousands of warships. President Morrison stood and walked to the window. Outside, people went about their daily lives, unaware that their entire civilization hung in the balance. How long do we have? 30 days. The President activated his secure communication system. Within minutes, the Joint Chiefs of Staff were arriving at the White House. General P. Collins came first, followed by Admiral Roy Hayes and Defense Secretary Karen White. In the Pentagon Situation Room, holographic displays showed the stark reality of humanity's position. General Collins, a stocky man with close-cropped hair, pointed to the numbers with a laser pointer. Our entire fleet consists of 437 warships, he said. Intelligence estimates put the combined galactic fleet at over 12,000 ships. We're outnumbered 30-1, and that's assuming every single human vessel is combat ready. Admiral Hayes, whose family had served in the Navy for 5 generations, shook his head. It's worse than that. Their ships are bigger, their weapons more advanced. A single Vorthan battlecruiser could probably take on 10 of our best destroyers. Defense Secretary White leaned forward. We need to consider negotiation. Maybe we can work out some kind of compromise. Give up some colonies in exchange for keeping others. They won't negotiate, President Morrison said firmly. Lisa was very clear about that. This is an ultimatum, not an opening bid. General Collins brought up tactical displays. If we're going to fight, we need to be smart about it. Guerrilla tactics, hit and run attacks make them pay for every system they take. That would mean abandoning millions of civilians, Admiral Hayes pointed out. Are we really prepared to do that? The room fell silent. These were people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity, and now they faced an impossible choice. Fight a war they couldn't win or surrender everything they had built among the stars. President Morrison made his decision. We don't surrender, but we don't strike first either. We prepare for war while hoping for a miracle. Far from Earth, in the Kepler 442 system, Captain Sam Turner was about to provide that miracle, though he didn't know it yet. His ship, the Use Horizon, was conducting a routine survey mission when sensors detected something unusual. Captain, called out Lieutenant Commander Beth Anderson from her position at the science station. I'm reading a massive metallic structure hidden in the asteroid field. It's definitely artificial, but the energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Captain Turner was a veteran explorer who had discovered 6 habitable worlds in his career. He had seen alien ruins before, but something about this felt different. Take us in for a closer look. As the horizon approached, the object resolved into something extraordinary. It was a ship, but unlike any vessel in known space. The hull stretched for kilometers, made of materials that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly with their own inner light. My God, whispered Dr. Amy Chung, the ship's archaeologist. This thing is ancient. The metal composition, the energy decay patterns, this ship is millions of years old. Captain Turner felt a chill run down his spine. If this ship was that old, it predated every known civilization in the galaxy. Scan for life signs. Nothing, sir. The ship appears to be completely dead. But, Captain, there's something else. The hull is intact. Whatever happened to the crew, it wasn't battle damage. Turner made a decision that would change the course of human history. Prepare a boarding party. We're going to find out who built this thing and what happened to them. As the Horizon shuttle approached the ancient vessel, Captain Turner had no idea that the ship's computer systems were slowly awakening after eons of dormancy. Deep within the ship's core, ancient programs began running diagnostic checks and accessing long-dormant databases. The ship had been waiting for someone to find it. Someone young and curious and brave enough to unlock its secrets. The architects had built it as a gift for whatever species would eventually grow beyond their homeworld and face the same challenges they once had. Humanity was about to discover that they were not alone in the universe, and that their current crisis was just the beginning of something far greater than anyone could imagine. Captain Turner floated through the airlock of the ancient vessel, his suit's lights cutting through darkness that had lasted for millions of years. Behind him came Dr. Amy Chen and Commander Bill Santos, the ship's chief engineer. Their footsteps echoed strangely in the vast corridors, as if the ship itself was listening to their every move. The interior of the ship was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls seemed to be made of the same flowing metal as the hull, but here it pulsed with a soft blue light that grew brighter as they approached. Strange symbols appeared and disappeared along the surfaces, moving like living things. "The air is breathable," Commander Santos reported, checking his instruments. "Actually, it's perfect. Oxygen levels, temperature, humidity, everything is exactly right for humans." "That should be impossible after all this time." Dr. Chin ran her hands along the walls, feeling the strange warmth of the metal. "The ship is maintaining itself somehow. Look at these symbols. They're not just decorations. They're some kind of writing system, but more complex than anything we've encountered." They moved deeper into the ship, following corridors that seemed to stretch forever. The vessel was enormous, easily the size of a small city. Rooms branched off in all directions, filled with equipment they couldn't identify. Everything was perfectly preserved, as if the crew had just stepped out for a moment. Captain Turner's radio crackled to life. "Captain, this is Lieutenant Anderson. Back on the horizon. We're detecting massive computer systems throughout that ship. Whatever it is, it's thinking about what?" Turner asked. "Unknown, sir. The processing power is incredible. Our computers can't even measure it properly." They reached what appeared to be the ship's bridge. It was a circular room with a raised platform in the center. Strange consoles surrounded the platform, their surfaces covered with the same moving symbols. As they entered, the lights grew brighter and the symbols began moving faster. Suddenly, a hologram appeared above the central platform. It showed a figure that was almost human, but not quite. The being was tall and slender, with large eyes and pale skin that seemed to glow from within. When it spoke, the words came directly into their minds rather than through their ears. "Greetings, young ones," the figure said. "I am the last echo of the architects. We have been waiting for you to find us." Captain Turner felt his heart racing. "Who are the architects? How long have you been waiting?" The hologram smiled sadly. "We are your creators in a way. Not directly, but we set in motion the events that led to your existence. We have been waiting for 12 million years. Dr. Chun stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "That's impossible. No species could survive that long." "You are correct," the echo replied. "We did not survive. What you see is merely a recording programmed to activate when certain conditions were met. The real architects have been gone for eons." The hologram waved its hand and the room filled with new images. They showed a galaxy teeming with life, but not the life they knew. The ships were different, the cities were different, everything was different. "Long ago we ruled this galaxy," the echo continued. "We were powerful beyond measure. We could reshape worlds with a thought and travel between stars as easily as you walk between rooms. But power without wisdom leads to stagnation and decay." Commander Santos was recording everything on his suit's systems. "What happened to you?" "We made a choice. We realized that our dominance was preventing the galaxy from growing and changing. New species could not evolve and develop because we controlled everything. So we decided to step aside and give others a chance." The images changed to show massive construction projects throughout the galaxy. Ships like the one they were on being built by the thousands. Strange installations being placed on worlds and hidden in space. "We scattered the building blocks of life throughout the galaxy," the echo explained. "We created the potential for new civilizations to arise. Then we removed ourselves from existence, leaving only these ships and installations to guide what came after." Dr. Chin's mind was reeling. "Are you saying that all the current galactic species were created by you?" "Not created directly, but guided. We influenced their development over millions of years." The Vorthans with their strategic minds, the Crystallans with their technological gifts, the Saurians with their warrior spirits. Each species was encouraged to develop specific traits that would complement the others. Captain Turner felt a chill of understanding. And humans? What are we supposed to be? The Echo's expression grew serious. You are the final test. Humanity was designed to be unpredictable, adaptable, capable of both great creation and great destruction. You are the species that will determine whether our experiment succeeds or fails. Back on Earth, Dr. Helen Barnes led a team of scientists working around the clock to analyze the data being transmitted from the Architect ship. The discoveries were staggering and terrifying in equal measure. The conference room at the CDC was filled with the world's best minds, all trying to understand what they were learning. The technology is beyond anything we've imagined, Dr. Barnes reported to President Morrison via secure video link. They could manipulate space and time itself. Matter and energy were like clay in their hands. But more importantly, they built safeguards. What kind of safeguards? The president asked. Dr. Barnes brought up a star map showing the entire galaxy. Dozens of points glowed with red light. Hidden installations throughout known space. They've been influencing galactic development for millions of years, preventing any one species from becoming too dominant, maintaining a balance, including us, especially us, Mr. President. The data suggests that humanity's rapid expansion has triggered automated responses from these installations. They're designed to activate when a species shows signs of becoming a galactic threat. President Morrison felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Are you telling me that our entire crisis with the Galactic Senate is part of some ancient plan? It appears so, sir. The architects wanted to see how different species would react when faced with a common challenge. Whether they would cooperate or fight. Whether they would find wisdom or give in to fear. Meanwhile, Chief Science Officer Nina Rodriguez aboard the Horizon was working to decode more of the ship's database. The amount of information was overwhelming. History, science, philosophy, art, the architects had preserved their entire civilization in digital form. Captain, she called out, I'm finding references to something called the Final Protocol. It appears to be some kind of galaxy-wide system that activates under specific conditions. Captain Turner, still on the Architect ship, asked the Echo about this discovery. The hologram's expression grew grave. The Final Protocol is our ultimate safeguard, the Echo explained. If the current experiment fails, if the galactic species cannot learn to cooperate and grow together, then everything will be reset. All current civilizations will be ended and the cycle will begin again. How do we prevent that? Dr. Chun asked. By proving that different species can work together when faced with extinction. By showing that cooperation is stronger than conflict. By choosing unity over division. The Echo began to fade as the ship's systems prepared to transmit more data to Earth. You have little time, young ones. The protocol monitors galactic events constantly. Your current crisis with the Senate is exactly the kind of situation it was designed to evaluate. What happens if we fail the test? Commander Santos asked. That the Echo's final words chilled them to the bone. Then the galaxy will be cleansed, and we will begin again with new species, hoping they will prove wiser than those who came before. As the transmission ended, Captain Turner realized that humanity's survival now depended not just on defeating the Senate's ultimatum, but on fundamentally changing how all galactic civilizations related to each other. The stakes had just become higher than anyone could have imagined. The ancient ship powered down its holographic systems, but deep in its core, other programs were activating. Programs that would monitor the next few weeks carefully and decide the fate of every living being. In the galaxy, the space around Earth had never seen so many ships at once. Supreme Admiral Thylax stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Vorthan destroyer, watching as vessels from 47 different worlds took their positions. The armada stretched. From Earth's moon to beyond Mars, a massive display of galactic military might that had never been assembled before. 12,000 warships hung in the darkness of space like deadly stars. Vorthan battlecruisers with their distinctive purple hulls floated next to the crystalline vessels of the collective, their surfaces reflecting light in rainbow patterns. Saurian attack ships prowled the edges of the formation, like hungry predators, while the ethereal ships of other species phased in and out of normal space. Admiral Thylex was an experienced military commander who had crushed 3 rebellions in his long career. His scales were scarred from countless battles, and his eyes held the cold calculation of someone who had never lost a war. But this situation troubled him in ways he couldn't quite explain. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth." "Put it through," Thylex ordered. President Morrison's face appeared on the main screen. Behind him stood the leaders of every major Earth nation, a united front that impressed even the hardened Vorthan commander. "Supreme Admiral Thylex," President Morrison began, "I speak for all of humanity when I make this formal request. We ask for membership in the Galactic Senate as an equal partner, not as a subordinate species." Murmurs ran through the bridge crew. This was not what they had expected. They had come prepared for surrender or defiance, not a request for equality. President Morrison continued, "We have made discoveries that change everything we thought we knew about galactic history. Information that suggests all our species share a common origin and destiny." The president activated a holographic display that showed selected data from the architect ship. Images of the ancient vessel appeared along with some of the historical records they had decoded. The reaction throughout the galactic fleet was immediate and dramatic. On the bridge of the Crystalline Collective's command ship, Counselor Vrex studied the data with growing amazement. "These records predate our oldest historical files by millions of years," she announced to her crew. "If this is authentic, it changes everything." Aboard the Saurian flagship, War Chief Crack slammed his fist on his command console. "Lies and deceptions," he roared. "The humans are trying to trick us with false data." But on the Etherian vessel, Prime Thinker Vexhai was deep in meditation, his consciousness expanded to examine the information on multiple levels. "The data resonates with truth," he announced to his followers. "There are patterns here that match ancient prophecies we had dismissed as mythology." Admiral Thylex found himself caught between conflicting reactions from his allied commanders. Some wanted to attack immediately, while others demanded time to study the human claims. The unified command structure he had carefully built was beginning to fracture. "All fleet commanders report to my flagship immediately," he ordered. "We need to discuss this development." Within hours, the command deck of the Vorthan destroyer was filled with alien leaders representing dozens of different species. The meeting was tense and chaotic as translators worked overtime to convert the heated discussions into something everyone could understand. War Chief Krax, massive even among his own warrior species, dominated one side of the room. "This is obviously a human trick," he declared. "They show us pretty pictures and ancient stories to make us forget that they are a threat to galactic stability." "The data appears genuine," countered Counselor Vrex, her crystalline form refracting light in agitated patterns. "Our analysis shows construction techniques and materials that are completely unknown to current science." Prime Thinker Vexhai floated in his meditation sphere, his ethereal form shifting between dimensions as he spoke. "I sense no deception in their transmission, but there is something larger at work here, something that involves all our species." Admiral Thylex listened to the arguments with growing frustration. He had commanded unified fleets before, but never one with such diverse agendas and philosophies. "We need to make a decision," he announced. "Do we proceed with neutralization protocols, or do we investigate these claims?" The debate might have continued for days, but it was interrupted by an urgent communication from Senator Vrax of the Crystalline Collective. The elderly senator appeared on the main screen, his form crackling with energy that indicated extreme agitation. "Admiral Thylex," Senator Vrax announced, "I am invoking emergency military protocols. The human claims are irrelevant. They must be neutralized immediately before they can spread more confusion among our forces. Senator, we are in the middle of analyzing their data. Admiral Thylex replied carefully. Perhaps we should wait until... No. More delays, Senator Vrax interrupted. I am ordering my fleet to begin the attack. Other species may join us or not as they choose. The transmission ended and Admiral Thylex watched in horror as nearly 2,000 crystalline warships broke formation and began accelerating toward Earth. The careful unity of the galactic fleet was shattered in an instant. On Earth, Admiral Kate Morgan watched the approaching enemy ships from her command center deep beneath the Pentagon. Her defense fleet of 200 vessels was already in position, but everyone knew the odds. Each crystalline ship was more powerful than anything humanity possessed. All ships, this is Admiral Morgan, she broadcast on the fleet frequency. Execute Operation Lighthouse. Repeat, execute Operation Lighthouse immediately. Captain Sam Turner, now racing back toward Earth aboard the UES Horizon, received the coded message with a mixture of excitement and terror. Operation Lighthouse was humanity's most desperate gambit, based entirely on the information they had learned from the Architect ship. Dr. Rodriguez, he called to his chief science officer, transmit the activation codes to the coordinates Dr. Barnes provided. We're about to find out if the architects really built what we think they built. Nina Rodriguez's fingers flew over her console, sending a complex series of signals toward what appeared to be empty space between Earth and Mars. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to ripple and bend. The hidden architect installation that had been dormant for millions of years suddenly became visible. It was enormous, larger than Earth's moon, a structure of flowing metal and impossible geometries that hurt to look at directly. Ancient symbols blazed to life across its surface as systems that predated galactic civilization began to power up. The effect on both fleets was immediate and dramatic. Every ship, human and alien alike, detected the massive energy signature as it grew stronger by the second. Computer systems throughout the galactic fleet began receiving data transmissions in languages that had been dead for eons. Admiral Thylex stared at the impossible structure in amazement and growing dread. All ships cease fire immediately, he ordered. Something is happening that we don't understand. But War Chief Krax was not interested in mysteries or ancient artifacts. Whatever that thing is, we destroy it along with the humans, he declared. Ordering his attack ships to continue their approach, the Saurian vessels opened fire on the Architect installation with everything they had. Plasma cannons and antimatter. Torpedoes struck the ancient structure, weapons powerful enough to crack planets. The installation absorbed every attack without showing the slightest damage, then it began to respond. The symbols on its surface flared brighter and a pulse of energy swept outward from the structure. Every ship and space station in the Sol system was bathed in strange radiation that their sensors couldn't identify. Suddenly, every sentient being in the fleet, regardless of species, began receiving the same message directly into their minds. It was not heard through their ears or seen with their eyes, but understood at a level deeper than conscious thought. The message was simple but carried the weight of millions of years of history. Children of the galaxy, you stand at the threshold of judgment. The time has come to choose your path forward. Admiral Thylex felt his understanding of reality shift as more information flowed into his consciousness. Images of the ancient architects, the true history of galactic civilization, the purpose behind the hidden installations scattered throughout known space. He realized with growing horror that the attack on humanity had triggered something far more significant than anyone had imagined. The installation was not just awakening itself, but sending signals to similar structures throughout the galaxy. After millions of years of patient waiting, the Architect's final protocol was beginning to activate. As the pulse of energy reached the edge of the Sol system and began propagating toward other star systems at faster-than-light speeds, Admiral Thylex understood that they had perhaps hours before every installation in the galaxy came online. When that happened, the fate of all current galactic civilizations would be decided by how they responded to the crisis they now faced. The test that would determine the future of all life in the galaxy had officially begun. The ancient installation continued to pulse with energy that made space itself seem to bend and twist around it. Throughout the galaxy, 46 other structures just like it were awakening from their million-year sleep. On worlds across known space, beings looked up at their skies in wonder and terror as massive constructs materialized from what had seemed like empty space. Dr. Helen Barnes worked frantically in her laboratory on Earth, surrounded by screens showing data from installations across the galaxy. Her team had been monitoring the awakening process for 3 hours now, and what they were learning filled her with dread. "Mr. President," she reported over the secure communication link, "the installations are connected in a network that spans the entire galactic disk. They're sharing information and coordinating their actions. Whatever they're planning, it's going to affect every inhabited world simultaneously." President Morrison studied the data from his Situation Room deep beneath the White House. "How much time do we have?" "Based on the power buildup patterns, I estimate 36 hours before the network reaches full activation," Dr. Barnes replied. "After that, your guess is as good as mine about what happens next." The message that had been sent to every mind in the Sol system was now being broadcast to every sentient being in the galaxy. Billions of creatures across thousands of worlds were receiving the same information about their true origins and the test they now faced. On the Vorthan homeworld, citizens gathered in massive plazas to discuss the revelations. The idea that their proud warrior culture had been guided by ancient beings was difficult to accept. Some called for immediate military action while others demanded more information. The Crystalline Collective's response was more analytical. Their scientists worked around the clock to verify the historical data they had received. Ancient archives that had been sealed for millennia were opened and compared to the architect records. The matches were too precise to be coincidental. Among the Saurians, the reaction was typically violent. War Chief Krax's announcement that their species had been created as warriors in some cosmic experiment triggered riots on several worlds. Many Saurians felt insulted by the suggestion that their strength was not entirely their own, but it was the Etherian collective that provided the first breakthrough in understanding what was really happening. Prime thinker Vexhai, deep in meditation aboard his ship in the Sol system, made contact with the installation's consciousness. "It is not merely a machine," he announced to Admiral Thylex during an emergency meeting. "There is awareness within. The network, a form of consciousness that spans the galaxy. The architects did not simply build these installations and leave them. They merged their minds with the structures themselves." Admiral Thylex felt his understanding of the situation shift once again. "Are you saying the architects are still alive? In a sense, yes. Their individual bodies perished long ago, but their collective consciousness lives on within the network. They have been watching and guiding galactic development for millions of years, waiting for this moment." Dr. Nina Rodriguez, working aboard the UES Horizon as it orbited the Sol installation, made another disturbing discovery. "Captain Turner, I'm detecting massive energy weapons built into the installation's structure. If this thing wanted to destroy our solar system, it could do it easily." Captain Turner studied the readings with growing concern. "Are all the installations armed like this?" "From what I can tell, yes, sir. Each installation has enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. If they all activate simultaneously, they could wipe out every inhabited world in the galaxy within hours." Back on Earth, General Pete Collins was coordinating humanity's response with military leaders from around the world. The situation was unlike anything in military history. How do you fight an enemy that exists in 47 locations simultaneously and possesses weapons that could destroy planets? "Our conventional forces are useless against something like this," he reported to President Morrison. "If these installations decide to attack, there's nothing we can do to stop them." Admiral Kate Morgan had a different perspective. "Maybe that's the point, General. Maybe the test isn't about fighting. Maybe it's about finding another solution." The answer came from an unexpected source. Senator Vrax of the Crystalline Collective, the same leader who had ordered the attack that triggered the crisis, sent a message to all fleet commanders in the Sol system. I have made a terrible mistake, his transmission began. In my fear of human expansion, I acted without wisdom. Now, I understand that our entire crisis was orchestrated by forces beyond our comprehension. We are all pawns in a game that began before any of our civilizations existed. Admiral Thylex gathered his commanders for another emergency meeting. The mood was very different from their earlier discussion. The reality of their situation had stripped away much of their earlier arrogance and aggression. The installations are monitoring our response to this crisis, Prime Thinker Vexhai explained to the assembled leaders. They are evaluating whether our species can cooperate when faced with extinction or whether we will turn on each other. War Chief Krax, normally the most aggressive voice in any discussion, seemed subdued. My scientists have confirmed the human data. We are all artificial species, created by beings we cannot comprehend. Our natural instinct is to fight, but perhaps that instinct was programmed into us. Counselor Vrex of the Crystalline Collective added her analysis. The timing of this crisis is not coincidental. Humanity's rapid expansion, the Senate's ultimatum, the discovery of the architect ship, all of it was planned. We are being tested to see if we have learned anything from the millions of years of guidance we have received. Admiral Thylex made a decision that went against every military principle he had ever learned. All fleet commanders will stand down. Their weapons immediately. We will not fire on the installations, the humans, or each other. If this is a test of cooperation, then cooperation is what we will demonstrate. The response was not unanimous. Several Saurian commanders argued for a preemptive strike against the installations. Some Vorthan captains wanted to maintain combat readiness. But gradually, the majority of the galactic fleet powered down their weapons and assumed defensive positions. On Earth, President Morrison made his own difficult decision. Admiral Morgan, stand down our defense fleet. If we're going to cooperate with the galactic species, we need to show good faith. The human defense fleet, outnumbered 60-1, powered down their weapons as well. For the first time in the crisis, every ship in the Sol system was in a non-threatening posture. The response from the installation was immediate. The pulsing energy patterns changed, and new information began flowing to every ship in the system. Technical specifications, scientific data, historical records that had been sealed for millions of years. Dr. Rodriguez, monitoring the data flow, made an incredible discovery. Captain, the installation is teaching us how to shut down the network. The information includes shutdown codes and procedures for safely powering down all 47 installations. But there was a catch, as Captain Turner soon discovered when he read the complete files. The shutdown procedure requires cooperation from representatives of every major galactic species. It can't be done by one species alone, no matter how advanced their technology. Admiral Thylex received the same information and understood its implications immediately. The architects built in a safeguard. The network can only be shut down if all galactic species work together. If even one major species refuses to cooperate, the installations will complete their activation sequence. The clock was ticking. 36 hours had become 30 hours, then 24. Representatives from every species would need to travel to their nearest installation and simultaneously input shutdown codes. The coordination required would be unprecedented in galactic history, but as reports came in from across the galaxy, it became clear that not every species was willing to cooperate. The Methane Confederacy was demanding territorial concessions before they would participate. The Silicon-based collective wanted guarantees about future trade agreements. Several minor species were using the crisis to settle old grievances. Prime Thinker Vexhai, still in mental contact with the installation network, brought disturbing news to the assembled commanders. The architect consciousness is losing patience with our delays. If we cannot demonstrate true cooperation within the remaining time, they will implement what they call the final reset. What does that mean? Admiral Thylex asked, though he feared. He already knew the answer. Complete sterilization of all current galactic civilizations. Every inhabited world, every space station, every ship will be destroyed. Then the architects will begin again with new species, hoping they will prove wiser than we have. The test was entering its final phase, and the survival of every living being in the galaxy depended on whether ancient enemies could put aside millions of years of mistrust and work together toward a common goal. Time was running out faster than anyone had expected. The installations throughout the galaxy were charging their weapon systems at an accelerated rate, and the window for cooperation was closing rapidly. What had been 36 hours was now down to 18, then 12, then 6 hours remaining. President Morrison stood in the White House Situation Room surrounded by screens showing the desperate efforts taking place across the galaxy. Species that had been enemies for millennia were trying to coordinate their actions while ancient grudges and territorial disputes threatened to doom them all. The Methane Confederacy is still refusing to participate unless we guarantee them exclusive mining rights in the Outer Rim, reported Ambassador Lisa Grant. The Silicon Collective wants written promises that organic species will stay out of their territorial space for the next 1,000 years. General Collins slammed his fist on the table. Don't these fools understand that there won't be any territories left if we fail? The installations will destroy everything. Admiral Thylax was facing the same problems in space above Earth. His communication systems were overloaded with messages from species leaders throughout the galaxy, each demanding concessions before they would cooperate. The unified command structure he had built was falling apart under the pressure. Admiral, his communications officer reported, the Saurian High Command is demanding that humans be excluded from any post-crisis agreements. They say humanity caused this problem and should not benefit from solving it. And the Crystalline Collective wants guarantees that their technology will remain superior to all other species, added another officer. They're threatening to withdraw cooperation if those terms aren't met. Admiral Thylax looked at the countdown display showing 4 hours and 37 minutes remaining. At this rate, they would still be arguing when the installations completed their charging sequence and began the final reset. Captain Turner, still aboard the UES Horizon near the Sol installation, was monitoring the network's communications with growing alarm. Dr. Rodriguez, the architect consciousness is becoming more agitated. The energy patterns are shifting toward what looks like a weapons activation sequence. Nina Rodriguez studied her instruments with growing dread. Captain, I think the network is preparing to act regardless of whether we cooperate or not. The power buildup is beyond anything we've measured before. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Chief Engineer Paul Martinez aboard the U's Defiance had been studying the technical specifications for the shutdown procedure when he made a crucial discovery. Admiral Morgan, he reported to Earth's Defense Command, I've found something important. In the installation blueprints, the shutdown codes don't have to be entered from different locations. They can all be input from a single installation if representatives from every species are physically present. Admiral Morgan immediately grasped the implications. You're saying we could bring delegates from every species here to the Sol installation and shut down the entire network from one location? That's exactly what I'm saying, ma'am. The architects built in this option as a failsafe. If the species could overcome their differences enough to gather in one place, they demonstrated the cooperation the test was designed to measure. President Morrison seized on this revelation immediately. Admiral Thylax, we're formally inviting representatives from every galactic species to come to Earth. Will provide safe passage and neutral ground for the shutdown procedure. The response was swift but mixed. Some species leaders agreed immediately, understanding that this might be their only chance for survival. Others hesitated, fearing that gathering their representatives in one location would leave them vulnerable to human treachery. War Chief Krax was among the first to accept. If we are to die, better to die fighting alongside former enemies than cowering in fear, he declared. The Saurian Dominion will send our best warriors to Earth. Prime Thinker Vex High was already en route, his ethereal form capable of faster-than-light travel without a ship. Counselor Vrex of the Crystalline Collective agreed to come but demanded guarantees for her safety. The clock showed 3 hours remaining when the first Alien shuttles began landing on Earth. The arrival sites had been hastily prepared at military bases around the world, with each species receiving accommodations suited to their environmental needs. The methane. Confederacy representatives arrived in sealed environmental suits that leaked yellow gas. The Silicon Collective delegates resembled walking crystal formations that rang like bells when they moved. Species that had never set foot on an organic world were now walking on Earth's surface. Dr. Helen Barnes coordinated the massive logistical effort from the CDC headquarters. "We have 38 species confirmed on the ground," she reported to President Morrison. 9 more are en route but may not arrive in time. "What about the holdouts?" President Morrison asked. "The Plasma Brotherhood is still demanding territorial concessions?" "The Quantum Collective says they need more time to study the technical specifications. The deep space nomads haven't responded to any communications." With 2 hours remaining, Admiral Thylex made a decision that would have been unthinkable just days before. He ordered his flagship to land on Earth, becoming the first Vorthan military commander ever to set foot on humanity's homeworld. "If this is to be our final act as galactic civilizations," he announced to his crew, "then let it be an act of unity rather than division." The scene at the Sol installation was unlike anything in recorded history. Beings from dozens of different worlds stood together in the ancient architect ship that Captain Turner's team had converted into a coordination center. The air was filled with translation devices working overtime to convert hundreds of different languages into something everyone could understand. Chief Engineer Martinez stood at the central console, his hands poised over controls that could save or doom the galaxy. Around him, representatives from 44 different species waited for the final 3 holdout races to make their decision. 1 hour remaining, Dr. Rodriguez announced. The installations are beginning their final charging sequence. That's when the miracle happened. The Plasma Brotherhood shuttle arrived carrying not just their delegates but also representatives from the Quantum Collective who had hitched a ride. The deep space nomads, true to their wandering nature, had been traveling toward Earth all along but hadn't bothered to inform anyone. "All 47 species are now represented," Ambassador Grant announced. "We can proceed with the shutdown sequence." But the Architect Network had one final test. As the species representatives gathered around the central console, a new message appeared in everyone's minds. The shutdown procedure required not just technical cooperation but something more profound. Each species had to formally renounce their claims to galactic dominance and accept all other species as equals. They had to pledge to work together for the common good rather than pursuing their individual advantages. Most difficult of all, they had to forgive past grievances and start fresh. "They want us to create a new galactic government based on cooperation rather than competition," Prime Thinker Vexhai explained to the assembled delegates. "This isn't just about shutting down the installations. It's about proving we've learned the lesson the architects wanted to teach." War Chief Krax was the first to speak. "The Saurian Dominion renounces all territorial claims beyond our home systems. We pledge to work with all species for the good of the galaxy." One by one, each species made similar declarations. Ancient enemies forgave old wrongs. Proud civilizations admitted their mistakes. Species that had never spoken to each other pledged eternal friendship. When the last declaration was made, Chief Engineer Martinez began the shutdown sequence. His fingers moved across controls that channeled the combined will of 47 different civilizations into a single command. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Throughout the galaxy, the ancient installations began powering down. Weapon systems that could have destroyed worlds went silent. The network that had monitored galactic civilization for millions of years shut down peacefully, but the architects had one final gift for the species that had passed their test. As the installations powered down, they released their complete databases to every world in the galaxy. Scientific knowledge, historical records, artistic achievements, and philosophical insights from the greatest civilization in galactic history became available to all. 6 months later, Ambassador Lisa Grant stood before the first joint session. of the expanded Galactic Senate on Nexus Prime. The chamber had been redesigned to accommodate humanity and several other species that had previously been excluded from galactic governance. The Galactic Senate tried to neutralize humanity, she began her historic address, but in the end, humanity helped save them all. We have learned that our strength comes not from standing alone, but from standing together. President Morrison watched the broadcast from the Oval Office, where he was meeting with the new Galactic Cooperation Council. The group included former enemies who were now working together to explore ancient architect sites and share the knowledge they contained. Captain Turner, now commanding the joint exploration vessel GS Unity, was preparing for humanity's greatest mission yet. The architects had left,